Have you ever wondered about Swedish Christmas traditions? Well, welcome to the Yule Goat. As with most Christianized nations, Sweden celebrates Christmas. All throughout Sweden, people eat meals with their families, open presents, and build 43-foot-tall, 3.5-ton straw goats in the middle of the town square. As you do. All normal Christmas activities in the town of Gävle, Sweden. The building of the Yule Goat starts at the beginning of Advent and stays up until around New Year's. Sometimes. With the building of the goat, another tradition quickly emerged as well. It's called, "How fast can we destroy this entire goat, much to the dismay of the investors?" Fun times. The giant Yule Goat is actually fairly new, starting in 1966, but Yule itself isn't. It's a celebration for the winter solstice, lasting for 10 days. Now, 10 days can mean a number of things to people. For students, it generally means how many days you get off of school for the holiday break. For Slovenians, it's a very important war in their history. And for the Yule Goat, 10 days would be an honor. The Yule Goat isn't a new thing either. It's been around for so long there's no specific start date. Yule Goat is timeless. Yule Goat is forever. Depends on who you ask, but people tend to say it started with Norse mythology in the Viking era. Looking at Thor, he had a pair of goats that guided his chariot. And just gotta say too, if this is the story people go with for celebrating goats in Sweden, I think the Yule Goat's repeated brutal faith is pretty appropriate. God of thunder? Heck yeah, that goat better be burned like it got struck by lightning. What a good way to honor the literal god of thunder. But anyways, you get the idea. The goats have been here a while. A Swedish person didn't just look at a goat and say, you know what looks super cool? During the 1600s, the Yule Goat was seen as a pranking and mischievous act people would do, dressing up and acting like drunk soccer fans, going from house to house singing. And then, somewhere along the way, thanks to Santa Claus and Christian influence, the goat became more known as a gift bringer. Nowadays, it's basically just an ornament you put on your Christmas tree. So there's your background to the whole goat fiasco, and now on to the actual goat. And no, I don't mean Meryl Streep. As most grand and luxurious things do, it all started as an advertisement idea. An advertisement for what, you may ask? I have absolutely no clue. But by God was Stig Gävle determined to do it. Funnily enough, it was built by the fire department originally, headed by Stig's brother and chief of the local fire department. Actually, I'm going to give you a couple seconds to guess his name because it is literally the most Swedish name I have ever heard. His name is Jörgen. And thus, the tradition was born. On the first year, 1966, the goat lasted all of December, meeting the first of many fiery demises on New Year's. The goat was actually insured too, so it was fine. This could either be a very paranoid businessman or a man who has seen one too many things in his life. But it still stands. Not the goat, but the idea that they knew what was up. Then, a group of businessmen called the Southern Merchants continued to finance it, which, again, I don't know what this business is. All I could find is that it's a non-profit, so if anyone knows Swedish, please clarify. The goat was created by an advertiser, built by the fire department, and financed by strange, wealthy Swedes. Nothing about this seems real. Google could have told me that the Swedish Prime Minister was forced to live in it each year, and I wouldn't even bat an eye at that. However, the group stopped financing it in 1971 after, quite understandably, getting fed up with it being destroyed so much. You know, I would love to sit in on that chat with the insurance company. I mean, how do you even bring that up? Hey, insurance person, so we got this great idea for a Christmas setup. It'll be around 84,000 kronor to build. Is that cool with you? Can we get insured besties, live, laugh, love? Yeah, okay, sounds like you're going all out this year. What do you have in mind? A goat. What? A 43-foot-tall straw goat. Excuse me? And we're gonna put it in the town square. Gonna leave it up for New Year's too. People will love seeing it when they leave for the bars. Hello? After the initial vandal was caught the first year, people took a break for a whole 2 years. It was fine in 1967, but 1968 they added a fence, and I don't know, I guess that angered some people because it was burned down the next year. This brave, fence-hating soul started a downward spiral of goat crimes. Literally the entire decade of the 70s, the goat did not survive. It does lead to an interesting list of crimes, however. The first 2 times was fire, pretty boring, so it became a challenge. In 1970, they mixed it up with fire again, pretty sad and boring, but this one lasted quite a while out there. New Year's wasn't the best option for obvious drunk reasons to leave it up, so instead, it was burned down 6 hours after being built. The Southern merchants, the Swedish business group from earlier, understandably were over this, so they pulled out. The Natural Science Club from the School of Vasa stepped in, making a much smaller goat, but a giant goat nonetheless, coming in at about 6.5 feet tall. People took this as a warning of having no future goats erected, and decided to treat the goat with much more respect. I mean, think of all the tourism and economic gains from having a giant goat. So, in 1971, with all the love and respect they could give it, it was smashed to pieces. What does smashed to pieces mean? One can only imagine. Were there shovels? Were people kicking it? I've learned not to question the Swedes during this. In 1972, it collapsed. No explanation. Actually, I lied. There is. Sabotage. That's it. 1973, the first prison sentence was awarded over the goat, and to be honest, as funny as it is, a little deserved. What possibly could this person have done to get 2 years in jail and be caught? Stole it. Just straight up stole the entire goat. The entire 6.5-foot goat. The entire basketball player length of a goat, and stuck it in their backyard. Like, the sheer confidence? I could only dream of having that. 1975, the poor thing just offed itself. It supposedly collapsed from its own weight. That's the story we're going with. But to be fair, if I built it, I'd be in denial too. 1978, kicked to pieces. I can only assume it was a group effort. 1979, burned. Didn't even get built yet. Not to ruin the fun, they built a second goat. They started learning, so they even fireproofed it. Looking at the past decade of the goat, it seemed the obvious next step to avoid previous destruction, like smashed, stolen, hit by car, and kicked to pieces. Yeah, that fireproofing's gonna help that goat so much. It'll totally last the whole month. 1981? Wow, it actually survived. I hope this goes on for a little while. Let's see, 1982? Fire. In 1985, it made its way into the Guinness Book of World Records, so they weren't taking any chances. Fireproofing didn't work, so they took the next logical step. An entire military regiment. So with their help, obviously the goat succumbed to fire damage. 1986, wanting to get back in on the action after the previous hectic year, the Southern merchants made a comeback, building their own goat. So, now we have 2 goats. Yay! More target practice. It started a self-proclaimed goat war between the two since the school secured the title of tallest goat. The Southern merchants went all in on bullying this poor goat as if being brutally destroyed each year wasn't enough. They were saying it looked unattractive and disproportionate. Oh yeah, and it burned down that year. 1987, with the stray of arson the last few years, they heavily fireproofed it since that seemed to be the trend. Thanks to their efforts, the goat burned down. Note to self, don't buy any fire extinguishers from Sweden. 1988, a needle in a haystack, it survived. It also marked the beginning of British involvement. But instead of being found and put into a British museum, they started officially betting on what would happen to it. I don't know, I guess horses got a little too boring for them. 1989 had 3 goats. First 2 burned down, and they wanted one for a movie in March. And I think we all know by now, that definitely wouldn't have happened. 1991, it became the center of protests and was illegally built with a sled. Doesn't matter because it burned down and was rebuilt in Stockholm to help protest against its guards. No, sorry. The military regiment being shut down. I wonder why. The military was dutifully protecting Sweden and the town. 1992, there were 3 goat casualties. Both the Southern Merchants and the school's goat burned down, so the Southern Merchants rebuilt theirs. And it burned down. The Southern Merchants still took this very seriously, so this year marked the start of the Goat Committee. That is an actual job that people have undertaken. 1994, it survived. Probably only because they brought it to Italy for a hockey championship. And as a Canadian, I'm surprised it survived a hockey championship, but then again, I'm Canadian. I don't think anyone else goes as hard as we do over hockey. 1995, a Norwegian got in on the action and was arrested for attempted arson. Please, leave it to the professionals here. 1996, I guess the Norwegians set them off, so this year included cameras to monitor the area. Surprisingly, it legit worked. It survived. 1998, it was the middle of a blizzard, brutal weather conditions that no one would ever even think of braving. Of course, it burned down. 2005, burned by Santa Claus shooting a flaming arrow at it. Typical, ordinary Saturday night plans in Sweden. You know, the usual. In 2006, the Southern Merchants goat survived, and they were so proud they hid it away in a secret facility. Again, not helping the group seem normal. Sounds more like a serial killer taking a trophy from a crime scene. 2008, ditched the flame repellent since it looked absolutely ugly and horrible. It burned down. 2009 had another robbery take place and cyber attack on the cameras, and repeated and eventual successful arson attacks. 2010, guards reported that people tried to bribe them. Sounds like a Brit lost a little too much in the gambling rings there. In recent years, it's actually been doing pretty well, surviving more times than it burned. It broke its record of longest survival, going from a whole 2 years to 4 years. From 2017 to 2020, it survived, and its streak in 2021 was some good old arson and a $10,000 USD fine. Now, I'm not supporting arson here, but I can't exactly say I'm cheering this goat on. It feels almost wrong for it to survive so long. I need more feel-good news stories in my feed. Anyways, I feel like I should put a disclaimer here to not go and harm the goat. He could be jailed and fined, and I think that's warning enough. If you're feeling like setting things on fire, go have a campfire like a normal person does. Well, that's my cutoff for a potential 5-hour-long rant, so I'll see y'all the next time with whatever grabs my attention first. Peace out, y'all.